Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin, episode 35. We're up bright and early on this beautiful Saturday morning.
Yes.
I don't know if the microphone picks up the birds chirping, but it's a really nice day out. The sun has come up, which is rare for us because generally we beat the sun up. So,
yeah, I hope it does get the birds because they're nice.
Yeah, it provides a little bit of a therapeutic atmosphere to the podcast. I think we're actually up. Again, before the sun. We're, a little bit after 6 o'clock a.m. here, which is, weirdly enough, a late start for us on those days.
Yeah.
So, anyway, how's training going?
Fantastic, man. What was it, 2 weeks ago, I started working out in the morning and doing all my training in the pre-breakfast.
Now, morning for you is like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I get up at 2 o'clock, get my food and stuff done for the day because I work. I start at 5 a.m. So if I get up at 2, I get everything ready for the day. I usually turn my garden on, the water for my garden, and I hit the gym from like 3:05 is what time I've been getting there. And I lift and train until right about 4:20.
Uh-huh.
And then that gives me time to get home and get my first meal. Yeah. And then change and go to work.
Yeah, because the gym's just 2 minutes from your house.
It's real close. It's real close. But the first week, remember I was saying how I liked it. I loved the feeling, but I was feeling like I was weak. Mm-hmm. And I didn't understand why. And I did, but it was because I made too many changes. But now they're all starting to even out. Diet's evened out. And the fasting is doing its job.
Yeah.
So getting that like 4 hours, even though my fast window is stopping at that fast window stopping at 5 a.m. or where they're close, it's still, I've been moving and doing something since 2. Mm-hmm. So, and I eat my last meal in the evening at like 6:30.
Well, that's been difficult for me is training in the opposite state where I'm eating so frequently and eating so much that when I train, it's inevitable that I can't train on an empty stomach because at some point I have to fit calories in when I can, so my meals are evenly spaced. And it's just tough when you get high in calories to do much of anything, honestly, but let alone to train because your stomach is full and you feel bloated and you're not going to get as much blood flow to the body parts that you're training because a lot of it's being used for digestion and other things. So it's less than ideal. I'd certainly like training on, I don't know if empty stomach is the right term, but I can't like chug a shake and then train shortly thereafter because I get sick and, I feel nauseous throughout the first half of my workout, which essentially wastes it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I've been doing is I wake up in the morning and I drink my water, the warm lemon water first thing, and then I do my pre-workout as I'm getting ready and stuff. That way I am fired up and ready to go as soon as I get there. Mm-hmm. It's nice. It's a nice change of pace.
And especially for someone who's focused on strength and fat loss versus strength and pure weight gain or muscle building or hypertrophy or whatever you want to say, training in a fasted state is probably beneficial for you.
Yes.
Well, I should say it is beneficial for you because you can see anecdotally that it's working.
Yeah. Strength's going up too, man. It's crazy. Like I started a plateau on all my push motions. And I kind of transferred over to dumbbell work instead and got away from the barbell for a while. And I feel like I had to go back through the logbook, but I'm pretty sure I'm the highest on all my dumbbell press motions that I ever have been.
That was what I was going to ask next. I was going to, inquire if you were at your pre-COVID numbers or still working your way back up there, because some of my stuff is back up to roughly where it was before the couple-month hiatus. And then there are several things that are still, I don't want to say far away, but still have quite a noticeable amount of strength I got to add to hit my PRs from previous off seasons or whatever. Not even previous off season, just last off season, where I was heavier and stuff, but slowly gaining more strength, slowly gaining more size. So that's all you can kind of ask for.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not sure, I know rep range for sure. I'm better than I was before COVID. Mm-hmm. Because I think I hit 80s like one of the last days we were in the gym before they closed. I hit 80 pound dumbbells on the flat bench for 1 or 2, and that was a pretty big deal. And then on what I think Wednesday was my last push day. I did I had 80s for a working set of trying to get 8, and I got 7.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing a lot of accessory work with dumbbells, like low weight, doing lateral raises and front raises and stuff, and incorporating that in between sets and a pretty big warm up. And it seems like it's been helping too.
Good.
I like a lot of joint mobility and stuff.
Yeah. So one of the things, the main thing that we wanted to talk about today, and we kind of got to this topic in a roundabout way. We started talking about coronavirus, and eventually we came into the topic of being able to change your mindset and your way of thinking, which for a lot of people is extremely difficult. I mean, I myself can attest to that personally. The way we got to this topic was initially, we started talking about coronavirus. And I mentioned how I was hopeful that one of the benefits, there are very few, but one of the benefits I had hoped that would kind of come through with this whole coronavirus scare, whether or not people think it's severe or, some people act very casual to it. And regardless of what side of the fence you're on, I was hopeful that this would have kind of instilled a little bit more of a sense of health and well-being in people, or the necessity for that.
Agreed.
So as things kind of went on throughout the coronavirus pandemic, I was kind of disappointed with the response of people. Again, not necessarily people taking it, super, super seriously, and I thought it was too serious, or vice versa, people taking it not serious enough, and I thought that they were careless. Regardless of what my thoughts are, your thoughts are, or anybody's thoughts are, I was hopeful that people would start focusing on the right things, like immune health, overall nutritional well-being, hygiene, that sort of thing. Unfortunately, it kind of got switched to where people were so concerned with adopting almost like a Western medicine type of view. And I'm not dismissive of Western medicine at all, but there's some nuance that goes along with it that I think misses the boat. So, for example, I feel like a lot of times in the medical field, we do a lot of focus on reaction and not proactive approaches. So we're reactive, we're not proactive. So instead of focusing on preventative medicine like exercise, nutrition, sometimes we fall short, and a lot of us focus on, okay, I have metabolic disease, what do I do? Or I have this issue metabolically, what do I do? Instead of going to a nutritionist or a dietitian or someone that can work through your nutrition, we'll go to get, prescribe something.
We're almost like we're in the day and age where there's a pill for that.
Mm-hmm.
You feel sad, there's a pill for that. You feel fat, there's a pill for that. You feel skinny, there's a pill for that.
Yeah.
And I like where you're going with that, where there's a approach that's natural and easier. Really, it's harder sometimes, but it's easier because it's right here in front of us.
So initially, I thought that that's where we would kind of go with things. I thought, okay, this is going to be an opportunity to focus more on our health, more on our well-being, more on stress management. So there's a lot of positives that I thought might come out of this in the way that people think. But it was unfortunate because a lot of what was getting pushed was missing the boat. It was continuously washing your hands and covering your face, which, again, a lot of people believe that there's merit in that. And if there is merit, I'm not dismissive of it. I'm just saying that, instead of, or not necessarily instead of, but in compilation with covering your face and, washing your hands or whatever, there should be some concern with your nutrition and some concern with your exercise. For example, I spent last weekend in Columbus, and as I'm walking around, the irony was hilarious because you see people who are in masks and constantly sanitizing their hands, and as they're walking around, they have, fast food and eating pizza and cheeseburgers and, sodas and all these things. And again, it's kind of like not seeing the forest from the trees,
right?
Where they're kind of missing the big picture here. And it's like, yeah, you can, wear a mask and sanitize your hands, but you need to work on strengthening your immune system, not hiding from something that, could potentially harm you.
Yeah, that's a good point too. It's like you said, you feeding yourself and being nutritious instead of just satisfied.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. like I see people all the time in the industry I work in where we have to like literally remind grown men at times to drink water because all they bring to work is pop and energy drinks and coffee.
Yeah,
I like energy drinks. I like coffee too, and I used to drink a lot of pop, but I've always drank a lot of water because when I was a kid, I was taught that my body was made up of a lot of it.
Yeah, it's essential.
So it's like, gotta have it. I don't know. I don't understand where the disconnect is with the simple stuff, like hydrating.
Yep.
It just doesn't, it's crazy to me.
So that kind of led into a bigger discussion of it's difficult to change people's mindset with things.
Yeah.
A lot of times most times, if not all the time, our process of thought, we create like a hierarchy in our minds of what's important and what's not important, and that's based on experience and relativity. So for me, I have things that I'm biased towards because of like my profession or because of my family or because of whatever. So people who often, haven't had that approach to something, it's difficult to get them started down that route because that's all they've ever known would be eating junk food or, not taking care of your health or whatever. So it's difficult to get the ball rolling in that regard. And we wanted to kind of talk about, an overreaching topic here, a broader topic of what does it take to change someone's mind or to change your own mind or your own habits when it doesn't align with what you've done in the past. So one example that we talked about was people saying that, this is what we've always done, so this is the way we're going to continue to do it, which
right.
I'm sure all of us are guilty of to some degree because naturally we're going to gravitate towards comfort, right?
Yeah, that's how I got to be 500 plus pounds.
Yeah, of course. Like you do what's comfortable, you do what you know, you continue to do it, and you get where you are.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of been a theme of the podcast since we engendered it, several months ago, was doing the uncomfortable and learning to be comfortable while doing the uncomfortable. And for people, it's hard to get in that mindset, myself included, and I'm sure yourself as well. So when you have a particular set of circumstances, that kind of dictates what your life is like and what you do accordingly. And it's difficult to shy away from that. Mm-hmm. If I am growing up where I only eat fast food, then likewise, when I transition into adulthood and independence from my parents who bought me the poor food, I'm going to continue to eat that way because that's all I've done previously. It's all that I've known. I've been accustomed to it, and I feel comfortable with it. So I'm going to continue to do it. So how do we change people's mindsets, or how do you change your own mindset if there's something that you do every day as a bad habit, but it's difficult for you to get off of? And I think that there's two parts to that question, because there's a transition period, I guess,
right,
between two paradigms. The people that do something wrong or have a habit that they know they need to break. And then there's other ones that are worse off where they don't know that they need to break or they don't think they need to change their way of thinking towards a particular topic or issue.
Right, yeah, so, wow, that's it. That's a good question. And it's kind of a tough one to answer, too, because every situation's different.
I think the first thing is communication, right?
Right.
You have to be able to talk. You have to be able to, and more importantly in communication, not just talk, but listen.
Right.
So I've had my mindset change on everything, almost on a weekly basis. Like with nutrition knowledge and training knowledge, I constantly try to learn more, constantly try to do better. That's one thing that you see with successful people all the time is there's a constant forward progression. And there's a humility that's coupled with that. So I'm always trying to get better, and I always understand that there's not... I don't know much of anything in the grand scheme of things.
That's how I try to look at it, too, like, on the topic of weight loss, because that's something I'm familiar with. I don't feel like I'm good at it. Everybody else keeps telling me how they want me to help them, or I keep getting this question, can you help me lose weight, or what did you do? Mm-hmm. And I just made incremental changes until I met you. I mean, it was just do something different because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I just knew I had to do something completely different than that. And that's really all I did.
And see, yours was not easy. I don't want to use that adjective because it certainly wasn't easy. But you had an easy, a convenient mindset change because you knew that you needed to change.
Right.
You knew that you were overweight. You knew that, you were obese, morbidly obese. You knew that something had to change. Otherwise, who knows what your future holds or how much of a future you would have. So you had to change. Some people are stuck in a particular way of thinking, or they don't think about certain things, and they don't even, it's like you don't know what you don't know. They don't even realize, or they don't find it necessary to change.
Smokers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
People that have smoked since they were young. Their family smokes, their mom smokes, their dad smokes, grandma, grandpa. It's not a big deal, right? But it is, because cigarettes kill people every day. And they don't, and a lot of times smokers don't recognize that it's a bad thing until they start not being able to breathe, walking down the street, walking down the sidewalk.
Well, that was kind of, in essence, how the coronavirus hit as well, where people initially said, I need to change my diet, I need to change my way, my habits, my hygiene, my metabolic hygiene, which is just as important, if not more important, than outward hygiene. Mm-hmm. And then it slowly started to go away. Now that our state of Ohio is, largely open, almost entirely open from my understanding, and we're not required to wear masks. It's encouraged, but not required, and rarely, if ever, followed from what I've seen, at least in this particular area. So people initially did have that kind of fearful act where I got scared, I had to change, maybe I'm going to change my eating habits, maybe I'm going to change my exercise habits. Take, for example, when I used to go during this whole pandemic to the track. I would go to the track and work out there. Now, workout kind of takes on a different term when you're not in the weight room versus like doing a lot of running and band work and plyometric work, and I guess in essence we could say athletic training over there. But I would see people there every day. It was packed. Tons of people walking, tons of people jogging, tons of people running and playing on the field. So there was a lot of people at the track. It was always busy when I would go to do my workout or my training or whatever you would call it. Now, there's no one there.
Yeah,
ever.
Back to a ghost town.
Now, there's parts that you have to put it in context, because I'm sure some of those people are now working out at a gym. Mm-hmm. Some of those people are back to work, so they don't have the full day to do what they want like that. But I still think that a large amount of those people aren't back because the initial shock or scare is over.
Right.
It's like someone who has a heart attack changes their ways immediately, and too often people then start to slowly digress into bad habits because it's not important anymore. Absolutely. So changing someone's way of thinking, fear is a very good motivator.
Yeah, you
for
have
people.
And from my experience, you can't change somebody's way of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm using myself as an example again. I've been told for, I don't know, 15 years that, Justin, you need to lose weight. You have to lose weight. You're gonna die. If you see 30, it'll be a miracle. If you see 40, it'll be a miracle. You don't want to leave your future kids here. I've heard these things, and then in the same breath, right after that sentence, I'd say, hold on a minute while I order my double cheeseburgers and French fries. I got a Diet Coke, so I changed.
I think the fear has to happen organically. It can't be instilled by someone else.
Right. You have to look in the mirror and say, this is what I want.
Yeah.
Whatever that might be. But I encourage people, the one thing that I try to do, and I try to encourage people to do, is to actually look in the mirror every day. And I can't remember who I heard this from, but be okay with the guy in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, who are you looking at? Dave Ramsey, I think, is who the quote is. But I want to be okay with the man in the mirror, the person I shave with. I want to know that I'm okay with the guy I'm looking at.
And that could take on several different contexts. That could be physical in appearance. That could be mental. That could be with your occupation or your career. Like, am I okay with the person that I've become or the person that I am right now? And if not, then what are you going to do to change it? I was talking at the gym, and I don't want to get too far off topic because I feel like this is an important topic to talk about, is, changing your way of thinking towards something. But I guess, you could make an argument that this falls in line with that topic, is I was talking at the gym with someone the other day, and I feel like I bring this up a lot. And I'm sure that there are instances where I'm guilty, so I don't want to be, the person in glass house or lives in a glass house who is throwing stones. But one of my biggest pet peeves, or a thing that I have a lot of difficulty tolerating, is people who complain about things that are completely within the scope of their control. So if you are in a situation where you're overweight, there's really no reason to complain about that, because that is entirely predicated on your effort to remove that weight.
Yep.
So you can change that. Now, if you have someone who has a severe physical impairment and can't exercise, and they complain about gaining weight, that's understandable, and I can tolerate that, and I can certainly sympathize or empathize with that to a degree, because I understand that you can't do what you want to do. But as long as you have the freedom to do what you want to do, then you shouldn't be complaining about it. Take bodybuilders, and I'm sure I've mentioned this during my prep. It's difficult to listen and stomach people who constantly complain about their diet.
Right.
If you don't want to diet, don't do it. It is in your control to change that. Why are you complaining about something that you have control over?
Yeah, you chose.
You chose to do this. Yes, you chose to prepare for the show. You chose the current job that you are in. You chose to be overweight and have health complications.
Yeah, and it took me a long time. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
On that topic, you chose to be overweight. That's why it took me as long as it did to lose weight.
You had to change your mindset.
I didn't know that I made the choice to be overweight. I looked at my family history, and I have arguably, and I think everybody feels this way, but I have arguably one of the most loving families in the world. But we love each other with food. So it's, I looked at my family history, and my whole family was big. My whole family, in some way, shape, or form, we all have a weight issue of some degree. So I didn't know that I made the choice to be big. I thought it was hereditary. Well, yeah, in a way, it can be a little hereditary to carry more body fat, or you might be susceptible to have more body fat, or you may have a disease or an ailment that makes you gain weight. But that wasn't the case. That's not the case. And it took me over 20 years to figure it out. Over 25 years. I was 28 when I decided to start losing weight.
And once you change your mindset, then
it's easier.
It's easy.
I mean, it's not. I want to be bold enough to say it's freaking easy. You know what I mean? Because it's once you become passionate enough to decide this is what I'm gonna do and not what I want to do.
But realistically, there's no change long term that's ever going to happen unless the mindset or the mentality is changed.
You have to
take, New Year's resolutioners. Yeah. It's a good example. Go into the gym and have some motivation, but as you always say, motivation, fails. Can fail you and can be fleeting and can disappear. And then what are you left with? You're left with the same mentality that you had before you set that New Year's resolution to lose weight or to gain muscle or to change your job or to make more money or whatever. So you really have to thoroughly undergo a change of mindset. For me, I think that the biggest motivator that I've had as far as my change of mindset goes, number one and number two, and I'd say 1A and 1B because I can't separate them even though they're largely different. One would be an open mind and communication, and then the other one would be fear. Now, fear in the sense like we spoke on earlier, where you have something that happens in your life that is a startling or eye-opening event, so maybe I need to change the way that I do something. So if I am eating a particular way, I end up having a heart attack or some type of physical issue that's a result of me being overweight. I get scared, I get nervous. That's my wake-up call. That's my slap in the face. It happened naturally. Okay, now I need to change it. Yeah. Then the other thing is communication. I think that is the key. Communication is the key to changing the mindset that you don't even realize that you need to change. Because the more you talk with people, the more you communicate with people, it may be brought to your attention as you become more and more open-minded. Oh my goodness, I do need to improve upon this.
Right.
Because I do that all the time with stuff.
That's funny. I like communication. I like where you brought that up because you and I both say all the time on the podcast. That's the reason why we're doing this, and then ... and we expand on that. Really, communication is the reason why we're doing this. Like, communicating the need via our own experiences or our guest experiences to do a certain thing is why we're doing this show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another facet of the reason why we're doing this show.
Yeah, it's communicating, some goals and some ways to achieve those goals for our listeners. Again, not through us, but through our guests primarily. Yeah. And it opens a pathway of communication. Like, when I think about the podcast, I don't want it to be something that's thrown out there, for other people to listen to, and that be the end game. I like when people ask questions. I like when people provide feedback. I like when people are interactive with it. I love when we had Coach Williams on last week, for example. He brought up particular instances in past episodes or particular things that you and I had spoke on and commented on them. Say, hey, I forget what episode it was, but I really liked when you talk about this, or I really liked when you talk about that, which was nice and reassuring to know that there's people out there that listen and then they communicate back with us too on certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool.
It's nice to have that communication because, there are things on the podcast, for example, that we didn't know necessarily that were needing changed, but people would say something. I remember back, one of our first episodes, months and months and months ago, we were having an episode and you were clicking your pen. And the pen was minor, but people had brought it up and said, hey, your mic, whether it's, an external microphone or an internal microphone on the computer, regardless, whatever you guys are recording with, it's picking up that sound of the pen clicking, where we didn't even notice that it was doing that. Now we're cognizant of it. Now that we're aware, we no longer do that. We make sure that we don't make a lot of excess rustling and bustling as we're sipping water through the episode or turning pages and notes or doing whatever. So again, didn't know we had a problem, and then communication helped us realize that maybe we need to change something little.
Right.
And it's minor things like that are a microcosm of the big picture. I think that the big picture is you need to involve yourself more with people that are opposite of you in whatever it is you want to improve on. So take training. Good example. People are stuck in their particular way of training, whether it's high intensity or it's high volume or it's high frequency or whatever your training style is or whatever training methodologies you believe in to get in shape. So we'll break it down even smaller. Let's go lifting. If it's lifting specific, you train a certain way, I train a certain way, Joe, Mike, Tom, Kathy, and Beth all train a certain way. So we have all these people that train differently and still get results. Maybe some of our results are better than others, and maybe that's because that our programming is a little bit better. Obviously there's genetic components, but maybe it's because we're doing something better. Well, maybe Beth doesn't feel the need to change her workout to do what Kathy does because Beth is still seeing results. Maybe Beth's results could be better if she does what Kathy does. But it's difficult because that's all she's ever known. That's all she's ever done. So she's not really communicating enough to think that she needs a change.
Right.
Whereas, so if I want to get better at lifting, which I do, and I want to get better at my training business, which I do, I network and have discussions with people. One time I had a discussion with Jason DeRose, who is the owner of a kind of like an athletic training facility geared at top-end athletes. I mean, they cater to athletes of all shapes and sizes and ability levels, but he works with a lot of professional athletes, a lot of college athletes around the Pittsburgh area at a place called Faster. And I was talking with Coach DeRose one time when he came and did some work with some of our students at our school in our athletic programs, and we had a nice discussion about back squatting. And he told me that he's not really a fan of back squatting his athletes very much, and that they do different front squat variations and different leg movements that mimic a barbell back squat, but he doesn't back squat his athletes very much. Me, however, especially at the time with our football program that I was working with, we were a very back squat heavy program. So we did a lot of back squatting. We undulated our volume, undulated, our rep ranges, but we would squat very frequently, 2 and 3 times a week even. Now, you would have to taper down intensity as you tapered up volume to go 3 times a week, of course, so we would go lighter at certain times and tempo through things, but ultimately we would squat a lot. And it was nice because I felt like I saw things, I didn't change my philosophy entirely, but I saw things a little bit differently, and having this, professional discussion about back squatting versus front squatting.
Right.
And it was nice to have, I hope that maybe there were some takeaways from his end of the conversation as well, at least information that I may have given or some of my rationalities as to why I did certain things. And it was nice just because then it changed your mindset a little bit. Did I eliminate back squatting from any of my programs? No, of course not. But, maybe the implementation or integration or programming of a front squat as a progression to a back squat or whatever for certain people maybe changed a little bit.
Yeah, it opened up the opportunity for you to maybe add that for somebody that needs it.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to get better at business, I think it's important to surround yourself with business-minded people, especially those who don't believe the same things that you believe.
Right.
Because then you have the alternate side of the coin. But that's so hard in today's society because everything, an excuse, like, the racially charged pun, everything is black and white now. So it's either you're on this side or you're on that side, and that's it. There's no in between. There's no middle ground. There's no communication. Take politics. I think it's completely ridiculous, and I always shy away from talking about politics. I think it's completely ridiculous, though, how we live in the 21st century and we only have a two-party political system.
Absolutely.
Because everybody on the left is forced, in essence, once they get their party nomination, they have to have everything on the left side. Same thing with the right. Once they get their party's nomination, now they have to change everything, even the little tiny intricacies they have to change to fit the party's need.
Right.
So I think that's very, very ridiculous that we have that going on.
And I think I'd be bold enough to say that's the problem with society in America, is the two-party system. Mm-hmm. And it's so biased.
Because that thought process, it goes through everything.
Yeah.
It's not just, okay, we have this two-party system, but your way of thinking, either right or wrong, yes or no, black or white, my way or your way, is what causes people to struggle so unbelievably, extreme with communication.
Yeah.
I try to have discussions with people for my own benefit because I believe this and you believe that. And I want to have this discussion to see why you believe that, see if maybe I'm being stubborn in some regard, but oftentimes those people take that very personally and can't have those types of discussions.
Right.
Like, I enjoy talking about difficult subjects because I feel like it enlightens me a little bit and gives me a different mentality towards things.
I don't want to be ever classified as stubborn, although I am.
Oh, we all are to some degree. Yeah,
that's why I'm okay with having a conversation, and I've made it a point to make friends, and not just acquaintances, but actually make friends with people of the opposite political views, because I really make a cognizant decision to see the good in everybody, and not see the negative against my political views.
Yeah. And that's political, it's religious, it's occupational, it's societal.
Health and fitness, it's
everything. Yeah, you're never going to find people that align perfectly with what you believe in or what you don't believe in. But the more we can understand that people are why are people coming from different points of view? Because of their lifestyle, because of their ethnicities, because of their nationalities, because of their societal standing, because of their occupation, because of their childhood, because of their family structure. There's so many things that play into why you think the way that you do. So it's very important to approach people with the understanding that they think the way they do because of what happens in their lives, and we think the way we do because of what happens in our lives.
Right.
So maybe the more communication we have, the more understanding we'll have. I always, enjoy having conversations, again, with people that view things very differently than I do. I have always been one, and you can put a completely different connotation based on which adjective you use, but my dad would always say I was very argumentative as a kid. And I'd say, no, I'm debatable, or I like to debate. That's it. I don't like arguing, I like debating. And there's a huge difference because I would use it as an approach to learn. Sometimes it would come across as I was trying to change someone else's mind, but that wasn't the case. I like getting in discussions where there's opposing point of views, and you have to, I guess you could use the term argue. You could argue your point of view and then have somebody else argue theirs, because I feel like there's not a single issue that can be discussed that doesn't have multiple sides to it or multiple angles.
Absolutely.
Even when you question something that seems so naturally set in stone, such as morality, like something is right, something is wrong. Okay, everybody can say that, murdering someone is wrong, killing someone is wrong. Well, even that has a broader discussion of what happens if your family's life is threatened or your life is threatened. What happens if it's a war situation? What happens if, some like the death penalty, where, there's, someone being killed for killing other people. Right. Is that right or wrong? So there's these broader discussions. And one of the things that I can always say about myself, at least, is that I've always been, with a lot of stuff, wishy-washy would be the term that some people may coin it. I think it's just undecided and well-informed, because I try to be well-informed on issues that I see both sides. So it's hard for me to say, well, I fall on this side or I fall on that side, because I know that there are certain circumstances where the side that you fall on may be predicated again on your experience.
Right.
One, and it's an uncomfortable topic for several people, but, when you have the topic about abortion.
That's funny you brought that up, because that was, when you were saying that, that's what I was thinking.
Where it's, you say you're pro, like I know a lot of people who have said that they're pro-life, and they want, the minute that, the baby is formed inside, even at the most simplistic of biological states, that is a life and it shouldn't be terminated. Well, I've had people that I've known that have changed their stance drastically when they were involved in a situation where being pro-life or being pro-choice arose. Now, suddenly, when they were put in a certain situation where it may have been adverse in their eyes to have a child at the time, either they were not financially or emotionally stable enough to have a child and would be putting the child into a bad situation or whatever, then all of a sudden their viewpoint changes. So I noticed that a lot of people have a particular view, and that's just, one random example that we won't delve into, because it's highly debatable for a lot of people and highly sensitive for a lot of people. But that's one example of where you can say you believe something until it affects you. Then your mentality may need to change a little bit, because you're like, oh, well, hold on here. Maybe I don't feel that way.
Right.
And you have to understand that people who feel the opposite way from other than what you feel may be coming from that side, because maybe they experienced it whereas you haven't.
Right. And it's, I don't think it's a bad thing to, like, to quote you, be wishy-washy. Mm-hmm. As long as you are aware of the fact that you used to believe that blue was blue and now you think blue is teal. Mm-hmm. As long as you're okay with understanding that you changed your mind, and you don't, because a lot of times you'll see where in politics, you mentioned before where, candidate A 20 years ago believed in low taxes, and now candidate A today wants to raise taxes on the rich to spread wealth amongst the poor. Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is I think it's perfectly fine, because the time frame, the thought process of this is what's necessary now, and then now this is what's necessary now. But if that candidate were to say, no, that's not what I said, that's not cool. But being cognizant of your opinions that can change, because it's your opinion. You're allowed to form educated decisions and change it. I think that's the whole, to get back to our podcast, the theme for today is changing your mind. Is you're making a thought process and deciding to change. And
it's maturing. Like you said, there are instances where politicians change their mind and they do it just because their party's affiliation. Yeah, that's where you could have two people coming from the same political party that are fighting because they each want to get the nomination for that party. Mm-hmm. And then the minute one person A wins over person B, then suddenly person B, who was vehemently opposed to person A because person A won the nomination for their party, B suddenly goes back and supports them.
Yeah, no, that's not.
So there are instances of that, but I think that when you find these videos of politicians, and people get outraged on social media saying, hey, I saw this video and so believes in, high taxes, but before he said that, taxes should be low 10 years ago. And, yeah, you could dig up anything from several years ago. I would hope that your mentality would change over the course of a decade. If you have the same amount of conviction towards the same issues politically, socially, economically, whatever, that you did 10 years ago, you're probably not doing a whole lot of communicating because the world is changing. Therefore, your views would likely be changing, but you're so set in stone in your ways that you're probably not advancing or growing at all, I would think, right?
Right. So, yeah. So to get back, I guess my answer, or not my answer, but my opinion on the topic for the day is 2 parts. You're worth it. You're worth making the decision to change or to change your mind to grow. And hard work and dedication is how you get there. That's the avenue. In anything. It's not just health, fitness, wellness, weight loss. Hard work, dedication can be writing a book. For me, it's something that I want to do. And it takes a lot of work for me to sit down and actually write because my handwriting's terrible. My grammar's not very good. So it's a lot of work for me to make good sentences on paper that make sense. Mm-hmm. So, hard work and dedication is for everything. It's not just physical.
And my takeaway from this topic personally would be to extend a challenge or a request for people to identify what it is in life that you'd like to improve in. So what area? Is it your job? Would you like to improve your political knowledge or stance? Would you like to improve in the gym? And I would challenge you to approach people who do things completely different than you do. So if you're a teacher and you want to become a better teacher, I would go to people that do things completely opposite and have a completely different conduction of class than you do, to see why they're doing what they're doing, how they're doing what they're doing, and the results they've seen from it. Likewise in the gym. If you do a particular set of, you subscribe to a particular set of training methodology. So this is what I believe in strength training, X, Y, and Z as far as reps, as far as sets, as far as volume, as far as frequency. Go to someone in your gym that trains completely different from you and ask them why they train that way, what they have noticed as a result from there, because I think that more often than not, we find that people's goals are actually aligned. You have the same goals as them, but you're going about it 2 separate ways. So maybe you could incorporate some of their training methodologies into your own. It's just very, very important, I think, to have 2-way communication, a 3-way communication, a 4-way communication. Involve as many people in the discussion as you can of a particular thing or a particular area that you would like to get better at, because realistically, the only way we're going to get better is together.
Yes.
So you have to find people that think differently than you do. Seek out those people and ask them why they do. We always talk about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, but that can be a blessing and a curse at the same time, because like-minded people are going to keep you entrenched in this paradigm that you're already in. And I don't think that people need a huge paradigm shift where they have to completely change their way of thinking, but no matter who you are, there's always some area of thinking that you can improve on, to say the least, right? I don't think there's a single person that can go out in public and say, whether it's politically or socially or whatever, I am perfect and I know that all of my, thoughts and everything are set in stone and I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, although it's unfortunate because people actually, do that. All right, so before we wrap up shop, kind of got to bring a close to things because I have a client that I have to go train and then a leg workout that I have to tend to. So what we are going to do now is we are going to briefly give a quick read for our sponsor, Beast Mode Baking. So Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders are for pre-order in order to be packed fresh and ship them out to you ASAP. They offer flat rate shipping of $15 due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in beast mode baking, please contact Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13, Shannon Knorr 13 on Instagram to get your opportunity to order some of her delicious goods. And we appreciate her support, and we support her as well, and we support all of our listeners, and we appreciate your support. So one thing that we want to add before we close up shop, as we're having this discussion, I see you write down on a piece of paper. What do you write down on a piece of paper here?
I just heard you say we're better together, and I've been seeing that around town all the time. So closing note, hashtag better together.
Yep. Find support and find people that view things differently from you. Don't view that as anti-support. Just because someone thinks oppositely of you doesn't mean that they're not supportive of your views. Oftentimes, communication is the best way to, create those bridges and bring social gaps to a close.
Yes.
Speaking of close, with that, we have come to the end of another episode. This has been Chasing Dreams Podcast, episode 35. So I am Charlie with Justin, and we will see you guys next week. Unbreakable, unstoppable.